Hello and welcome to In the Light Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. And today, my guest is Charlotte Tedds. And Charlotte is, well, she specializes in helping people with trauma. Charlotte, welcome.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much for inviting me to have this conversation with you. Yeah,
Well,
pleasure.
I heard you on the Wild Woman podcast with the
Mm.
wonderful Donovan, and what you had to say was so important. I thought it would be really good to have the chance to speak with you myself. So here you are.
Thank
And
you.
what grabbed my imagination is the fact that you're healing with trauma by working with the body.
Mm.
So tell us about that, because for a lot of people, this concept will be new.
Yes, yes, it is relatively new, I guess, within the mainstream narrative of how we can heal stress and overwhelm. There are three, I guess, ways that is known to be able to heal trauma, and they are medicinal, which is pharmaceutical traditionally, from the top-down approach. So that is the talking therapies, clinical therapies, and then there's a body-up approach, which is the area that I'm interested in. And it really is, I guess, through understanding how the body receives emotional stress and overwhelm, that it is kind of absorbed through the body first before the mind can really even get hold of it. That led me down this path of healing, and through my own personal journey of hitting the end of the road through medicinal and kind of top down approaches. um the more I read and the more I found and related it to my own clinical practice, which at the time I was a podiatrist, and so I was working with the body in a different way, but it everything just married up really, really quickly. And so I initially started it on my own body and my own healing, and then once my capacity grew and I started to see these drastic changes, I then, yeah, kind of thought this is where I'd like to spend my time.
So you initially started this to help yourself. How did you do that? Because it's one thing to be working with others, but to be working on yourself. What was that like?
Well, it was literally from initially books and mentors that I was meeting on my journey in podiatry. So I had come to a point in my practice where over the 20 years, everything that I was seeing was coming down to some kind of stress of some kind on the body, whether the person was overusing their body or underusing it because, due to shutdown and depression. So, and each time it would come down, I'd come down to stress. And that was also for the chronic diseases that I was seeing. It would, when you go down that rabbit hole, it would just, you'd always come back to stress of some kind, whether it's from the environment or emotional. And through my own body, I was seeing practitioners, my back would constantly go, my hips, I'd all sorts of little niggles. And yeah, and I was around a lot of health professionals, physios, osteos, chiros. I felt quite fortunate. I was in that arena anyway, and yet still I kept coming across the narrative of, Charlotte, you just need to calm your body down. Like your muscles are all tight, and you just need to de-stress and do things. The kind of advice they gave me. So I was always just looking for ways to calm the nervous system. I went down through acupuncture, through the Eastern philosophies. I did yin yoga. I started to find those systems that would relax the nervous system. But it was only really where I came across a book written by Thomas Hanna, which was called Somatics. did all my light bulbs connect. And that book I pretty much took upon my own learning, and I just followed all the instructions it was saying. I was also seeing it in the clients that were coming in to me. I could see their body postures, and my own body just started to relax and unfold, and that allowed all the other modalities that I was trying, they just had more of an effect. So it seemed to me that I'd kind of got to more of the core of this unraveling from an emotional letting go. And then from there, it kind of just led into fascial work with trauma and all the different body-based modalities that are out there. Then it kind of just unfolded into that world.
So
Yeah.
if we're talking about, so obviously there are different types of trauma. There is emotional trauma as well as physical trauma. And it's easy to see how body work might help with physical trauma. And you've talked about calming the nervous system. That makes sense too. Is there more to it than that, than calming of the nervous system to help with trauma?
Yes, it's really then we're coming into the realm of learning how to regulate the nervous system and really learning the states, which are very normal to experience. So it's not just about calming it. Initially, it is calming it in the way that so we can discharge those chemical stress, the stress chemicals that are in our body, so we can start to recognize, well, actually this is a more comfortable state to be. But because we live in such an abnormal world, most people's baselines are actually higher anyway. So the basis generally for most people is there is a general calming needed because we live in this world. But then once you've that trust is gained with somebody, that's when the conversation opens up with regulation and really what each of these states feel like, because we still need to experience the states with, if I cross a road and a car's coming, I'm still going to need to operate in those states. And if my body does feel overwhelmed, I'll still need to go in that shutdown if I need to. So it's knowing it's all very normal and knowing, but how much time are we spending in each of these states, and how can we regulate to have more control over where we might want to be. So it's more for me that empowerment conversation that we end up having.
It's interesting because you talk about the body shutting down, and that automatically made me think about ME. Um, so is am I right to think about ME? Is that an example of how the body might shut down?
Yeah, there's so much evidence out there now in a lot of highly recognized medical journals and non-recognized that stress and overwhelm causes a lot of ailments. There's one for almost every ailment, but sadly it's not been picked up with medical education. And so it really is the pioneers of trauma work that have already got that voice and that pedestal to be able to talk this. And they're doing that more on an entrepreneurial level rather than it being filtered into everyday healthcare, what people are going to seek advice from. So there seems to be this barrier of information that can come through. But yeah, ME, it's just where the body is feeling overwhelmed for many reasons, whether it's emotional, environmental, and that body is saying that's enough for now.
We hear a lot about the about body memory and trauma being stored in the body. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, from my readings, I can share from my personal, I guess, experience and working with others. The the fascial system that entwines all of our body, our muscles, within our cells even. The world of fascia is relatively new in terms of the medical field, and is still unfolding. You know, it's phenomenally growing in terms of its knowledge, and the structure is fully, I guess those that are studying it still are very humble to the structure because they don't still understand it, but they recognize its power and influence. And so that fascial system is basically our sixth antenna of how we detect our environment. Because the fascia is very linked with the relationship with water and movement and the nervous system, anything where, because it's absorbing everything, I think they say it's 90%, it detects 90% of emotion, fascia. So because the body is made up of so much of it's a really intelligent structure that's picking up emotion, and because of the speed at which it picks it up, it's picking it up more quicker than what our mind can make sense of it. So this is where the term "the body keeps the score" comes from, with Bessel van der Kolk and Dr. Gabor Mate with "The Body Says No," and Dr. Peter Levine. They're all talking about the same thing, and so that fascial structure is holding it. Then with our lifestyles, I guess, if we're not moving effectively as we maybe should, and then you've got emotional bracing that comes in. So depending on the type of emotion that comes into our life, we'll adopt these emotional bracing patterns. They then cause us to stiffen up in certain ways, and then we get this, what they deem as this area where this trapped emotion can then store. So to my understanding, this is why when we start to move the body and you work with fascia and body work, why body work it can be really effective, is because you're starting to unravel those places where it's been stored very safely and very effectively. But that's kind of on the line that I understand it.
For people who are very new to the fascial system that you're talking about, where in the body do we find it?
The best way I understood it, and I like things kept really simple. I loved it when somebody showed me an orange, and the pith of an orange, and all of the white structure, and how it integrates around the orange and in the middle and everywhere. That's kind of like how we are inside of our body, and it surrounds every muscle. It then connects every muscle into like a pulley system. So we are operating basically as a pulley, as one. And around nerves, bones, it's everywhere. But when you look at the old anatomy textbooks, and this is how I learned, you don't see it in any of the pictures. It's just the bone, the muscles, the nerves, and everything's very segmented. It was only, what was it, a good 10 years after practicing did I kind of discover fascia. And then it's almost like you've been practicing with one arm tied behind your back. You kind of think, well, I've been a bit shortchanged here. This really would have changed a lot of my approach and my understanding. So yeah, it's another picture. If you look at under a microscope, it resembles like a spider's web. Or I guess candy floss, and imagine it with water droplets on it. It's very connected with water, very delicate, intelligent, but yet strong.
Listening to you describe all the things that it does, and talking about the fact that it is so watery, if we can put it like that, um, it struck me that if it is picking up on emotion faster than we can process, um, we always think that we can pick up on hidden signals through our eyes because of body language. But are we then saying that underneath our skin, quite literally, we can pick up danger because we have this sensing ability that's very physical within us?
Yeah, that's right. That's something that I perceive it as. And when the eyes are very important, obviously, that, the vagus nerve is very innovative here, and that's our main, definitely, in the ears, it's all interrelated. But then you've got this intricate system that is operating through the body. And, I guess when you get those shivers, or those, when somebody says something and you might get that kind of effect through your body, that's the closest relationship I feel that I could feel fascia. I don't know if it is, but it really is that sense of, because it's so interconnected with the nervous system, and it's bringing information into the nervous system equally as the nervous system is giving it information. So it truly is, I see it as our sixth spidey sense of how, and like you say, picking up. I've even, I kind of, and in the fascia world, they'll say this too, of, there's this understanding of, is this where our soul light comes in? Is this where it lives? Is this where it kind of makes its entrance? And how things are, in kind of a spiritual way. They have complete respect to that's not quite known, but they sense that there's something a lot more powerful in it.
I'm just listening to what you're saying, and there's so much in there. And I keep thinking about the fact that it's so linked with water, and how water carries energy as well, and how water has memory.
Yes.
So it's been demonstrated that water has memory, and that water actually also is, I don't know that we can say that it's emotional, but it certainly responds to emotion.
Yeah.
So the experiments that have been done show that that water responds to our emotions. So there's something very important here that we're learning, which which absolutely, in my mind, accounts for why our bodies would then hold on to trauma. And as you've said, in that case, then um, the body tenses in specific areas that are holding the trauma. Has there been any research done into the types of trauma, different types of trauma, and where in the body they might be stored?
There's different fields, I guess, are exploring different sides of it. And my understanding of as far as I have got, is that there is elements that you do read it, particularly on the Chinese medicine, that they'll say certain organs will store certain emotions. I actually don't know how you'd find that out. I don't know, but I don't doubt it either, because there's so much that we don't know. Equally, when you look at the German New Medicine model, that is another example of how there are certain organs and disease processes that come back to an embryotic membrane that is going to that part of the brain that then comes back to an emotional reason, whether it's grief or anger. There's so many of them. And the way that is then treated, people resolve this chronic illness. And so to me, that would obviously, then that must be right. So I think anyone that's treating it in that way and they're getting a result, to me, that would be how that could be shown that could be possible. In terms of other parts of trauma, then my belief is it seems to be the emotional type, which is the main driver of that person's life, that tends to push it to. I know Dr. Gabor Mate, he's wrote extensively on this on The Body Says No, where he's highlighted lots of research papers where certain conditions have led to whether, you know, ovarian cancer, asthma, and it's all linked into certain groups.
So the reason I asked the question is I had, of course, I had Chinese medicine in mind. I had medical astrology in mind, and I also had my experience with my clients who, when I ask them, where in your body do you feel this feeling? I have yet to find a person who didn't tell me. And it's not a question that we are normally asked. But when I ask them to locate it in their body, they always do. And very typically, it's the stomach or the chest that come up most. But the head and the throat, I think, would be a close second. And occasionally, it's the hands, it's the back, and very occasionally, it'll be the limbs, the hands or the feet. So that's the order in which people seem to experience their feelings. And they're not talking about organs, but they are talking about the general area of where they feel that emotion when we begin to work. And that is always how we begin. We always begin through the embodiment of the emotion. Where is it? Where's this thing hiding? Where's it lurking? And I think so that was why I wondered whether any research, and I think you mentioned German New Medicine as having as being the more recent research that's been done.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point you made, actually. And to help clarify that, I echo and mirror exactly what you say with that. The location, it's certainly somatically, so if you were going to look at the research somatically, then yes, there's it then comes down to it's experiential in that person, and it's an individual, but then you see a pattern, like you say, with the, you know, it's chest, tummy, which I guess when you're looking at the vagus nerve and kind of where this innervates, it's the classic points of where that is. It's quite amazing, really. I'm like you, you see this pattern forming all the time, and people know exactly where it is. It's
that instinctive knowledge of where it is, and sometimes people are very surprised that I'm asking the question, but
wow.
but there it is. So I guess my other question is around chronic pain. So let's say somebody has a hip issue or a knee issue. I'm just wondering, is there something that is particularly physical, or are there conditions that are strictly physical? Or would, let's say, somebody who has arthritis in their knee, would this also apply to them? Might there be an emotional connection?
Yeah, there is pain research is another huge field, and certainly, most certainly, just from my personal interactions with clients, as soon as you start to allow the body to go through what I call a pulsation of being able to contract and relax in numerous ways, and bringing their awareness to how that body can pulsate in a contract and relax way. There's so many ways. The organism can really start to shift things, and pain can start to lessen for sure. And then you know, the conversation then is you can start talking about pain and the ways that you can shift your perception of that, and our attachment to pain. And I'm not undermining that it's all in the mind, because it's not, but there's a lot of research now and kind of evidence that we're in relationship with the body in numerous ways, and that emotional attachment we have with it is huge.
So I'm just thinking about somebody who might be very skeptical and say, "Oh, come on, don't be silly," you know, uh, bone on bone pain, in the knee. We're not going to be able to do anything about that, are we? Surely a knee replacement is the way to go. What do you think?
It's an individual basis, and through my working in like more orthopedic role, I've seen x-rays where it has been bone on bone and that person doesn't report any pain. But it should, I guess, on x-ray it should, logically, why aren't you in pain? And then you'll get one that isn't maybe as deteriorated, and they're in excruciating pain. And this just opens up that window of, there's no one, you are this, you are that, and you're at fault or anyone's at fault. I think we are dealing with so much complexity. I think primarily that person, allowing that person to feel safe with what they're reporting, and they can have a safe medical journey, just the fact that alone that you can be felt, seen, heard and believed on a health journey is really powerful. I did that in my own clinic that I had. I changed it into a purely trauma-informed clinic, and this was before I was advertising and practicing trauma specifically, and I saw a huge change in clinical outcomes and we didn't change anything else. We was doing the same interventions, but what we did is we created an environment that our goal was to allow that nervous system that came through the door to feel seen, heard and believed, and then obviously create that safe container for everybody. And yeah, so it's individual, I think.
Does a person need to come to you in the flesh, or are you able to work online as well?
Yeah, I work online, I work in person, in groups. Yeah, there's no barrier to how we can work together.
Absolutely wonderful. So can you just talk us through the process that you go through to help somebody get to that point where the healing is facilitated? It begins.
Yeah, it's really that initial conversation and finding out what it is that, that's on their mind, and what they're struggling with, or the, perceived to be concerned about. I then, you hear that, and then share the services and the way that my, I guess, thinking is applied. If that is something they want to do, then we kind of start the sessions. And like I say, I use different modalities, and my goal is always to share to the client that I'm here to provide a map for your nervous system, to educate you on your own nervous system, and give you a few tools that you can try. You might like one, you might not like the other, but then empower you to know there's so many embodied practices out there, or not just embodied, spiritual. But as long as you've got that grounded safety map that you're sticking to, you'll figure it out. And obviously, calming down any initial, traumas that are blocking them and stopping them. I see that as my immediate job. And then the rest is kind of empowering, and please go, and we can all do this ourselves. It's just I feel we've been disabled in the information that we've had access to, and like the work you do, with that, the astrology and the spiritual, it's all really, to me, that is our true coming home.
It certainly is, and that is the beauty of what you are doing, is that you are helping people to understand the power that they have within themselves. So for that, I applaud you hugely. And I think that many people are going to be wondering how they can find you because they really want your help. So, what is your website, Charlotte?
So my website is embraceflow.co.uk, and I'm on Facebook as Charlotte Teds, on Instagram as Charlotte Teds. I've just started my YouTube, which I feel like a learner on there, so I'm very new to that, and embodying that journey as a newbie. So that's not very developed yet, but yeah, the website and how they can communicate with me is
Brilliant.
straightforward.
Brilliant. I'll be putting a link to all of it in the description box so that people can easily find you. Charlotte, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Anna, for this opportunity and conversation. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you all for watching. Next time, we're going to be looking at mediumship. Until then, goodbye.